and Johnny Parlay with the facts. So relax, grab a drink, then let's get back.
Welcome back, fans. You're listening to The Spread. I am your host, Jim Cella, sitting in studio with JDash, about to talk about some fantasy wide receivers today. What do you got for us?
Well, let's start off with the elite receivers that you must be playing. Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Kelvin Johnson, Demaryius Thomas, Des Bryant, AJ Green, and Brandon Marshall. Now, Kelvin Johnson is doubtful. It doesn't look like he's going to play. And AJ Green is questionable with the toe, and it doesn't look like he will play either.
Well, you might want to play Brown if you have him, because we all know the Steelers are going to throw him the ball at least 5 times no matter what, so he gets 5 catches. So
he'll probably have 50 yards, too.
Yeah, there's at least 5 points for you.
Okay, a couple other must-starts right now. Steve Smith, Jeremy Maclin, Elshon Jeffrey, Emmanuel Sanders, and the 2 Green Bay receivers, Nelson and Cobb.
Steve Smith's a good play. Baltimore really doesn't have a lot of other options. Macklin's, he's a big play receiver for Philly right now, so he's a good play. And Emmanuel Sanders, I'd have to say, has impressed me out in Denver. He actually catches the ball. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
I don't know what happened. Maybe they gave him some stickum or something.
He puts up huge points. He's going to go into the elite range pretty quickly. The best of the rest. My number 1 is Victor Cruz at Philadelphia. They led up the second most to wide receivers. He did have a down week last week, but he had 2 straight 100-yard games before that. I really like this matchup.
Victor Cruz knows how to dance, so he's going to put up points against Philadelphia. They might throw batteries at him, so you better be careful.
Number 2 might be a little bit of a surprise. Golden Tate at Minnesota. They're a pretty good pass defense, but with Kelvin Johnson out, he's put up 250 yards in the past 2 games, so put him in your lineup for sure.
Dumb name, good fantasy play.
You don't like Golden Tate?
No, I don't like his name. Stupid. Yeah. Golden Tate.
All right, number 3, Wes Welker at the Jets. They led up the 8th most to fantasy wide receivers. He had 18 targets in the past 2 games. He's already putting up points. I love Denver wide receivers.
A little scary, though, because he hasn't had a concussion in about 3 weeks, so he's pretty much due for one again, isn't he?
Yeah, he is due for a concussion. Next, we have Vincent Jackson. He's questionable, but he is going to play, it looks like. He's going up against Baltimore. They led up the 7th most of fantasy wide receivers. He had a huge week last week, as I predicted. And he has 22 targets in 2 games, so he's already getting looks by Mike Glennon.
Yeah, you can see Mike Glennon is definitely the better quarterback. They don't even need Josh McCown. They keep him in there. He starts throwing the ball to their best wide receiver. It pretty much pays for itself.
Number 5, Kelvin Benjamin. This guy is a beast. He's going up
huge
against Cincinnati, who is a good pass defense, but really he's their only weapon out there right now. They have no run game. Cauchery might be their second best receiver, sadly enough. He did have a down week last week, but Cam Newton has to find someone. It's either going to be him or Greg Olsen, and I like Benjamin.
Yeah, Cam can't do it all himself, so he's going to have to force feed the ball to Benjamin.
Percy Harvin at number 6 versus Dallas. They led up the 5th fewest, so they're very good against fantasy wide receivers. But he actually had 3 TDs called back last week. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was crazy. I think that's the first time that's happened in a game to one player.
I actually played against him last week in fantasy, and I only won by like 9 points. But he is ready to break out, so play Percy Harvin.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot higher on a lot of people's lists. So if you can get him on waivers or a cheap trade,
buy low right now on Percy Harvin. Number 7, Deshaun Jackson at Arizona. I said this guy was going to be a bust last week. I was completely wrong. He's going up against Arizona this week. They led up the most points to fantasy wide receivers, which is surprising because of Patrick Peterson out there, that beast corner. But Deshaun Jackson's very inconsistent. Look at this, 14-2, 27-1, 35. That's his points throughout the season.
Yeah, Jackson's usually too worried about the gang signs he's going to flash during the game, or maybe hanging out with Aaron Hernandez when he's done with his trial. I think that dude's career is going to start going downward now after he left Philadelphia.
Yeah, I do not like Pierre Garçon this week, but I do play Jackson. Number 8, I have Brian Quick versus 49ers. They're another good pass defense, but this guy has been putting up points every single week. He's a solid receiver. He's the only thing Austin Davis has to throw to outside of their tight end, just like the Carolina Panthers. And he has 3 TDs in his past 2 weeks, so Brian Quick, he's probably available on your waiver wires. Pick him up and play him.
Yeah, Tavon Austin's pretty much been a bust for the Rams, so they're definitely going to be giving the ball to Quick, and their running backs are either hurt or just suck. So, I mean, he's the only guy they got.
Number 9, I have Keenan Allen at Oakland. I said he was a good play last week, and it turned out he had a bad week, but they were up early, and they didn't really need to pass. But they're going up against Oakland this week, and I expect them to be passing all game. He killed them last year. Now, Eddie Royal, I don't trust as much. He came back down to earth last week, but Keenan Allen is a beast receiver, and I keep playing him. Number 10, we have Sanu from Cincinnati. Johnny Parlay picked this guy up.
Loves him.
It was a good pickup. Listen, he's going
especially with A.J. Green out.
Yeah, A.J. Green out. He's going to be their number 1 receiver. He had 3 solid weeks in a row now. 2 TDs over those 3 weeks, going up against a bad pass defense. Sanu's a great play this week.
He's lights out when he's got his game in tune.
Number 11, I said this guy was a buy low candidate last week. He had a pretty good week, so you might not be able to get him now, is Ruben Randall going up against Philadelphia. And like we said with Victor Cruz, Philadelphia is a bad pass defense. Plus, Ruben Randall has 30 targets in his past 3 games, so he's getting a lot of looks. He had a TD last week. If you can still buy low on him, do it, but I doubt it's going to happen now.
Yeah, Eli likes to try to find him, across the middle or in the slot or on some little bubble screens. So he may be taking over as Manning's favorite target out there in New York.
Number 12, Roddy White had a bad week last week, but he's going up against Chicago. They let up the 10th most points to fantasy wide receivers. He had a huge week in his return from injury with 14 targets. Down week last week. I expect him to pick it back up this week. Matt Ryan's going to have a huge week. Jones and White are both going to have good games.
Dude, Roddy White always plays well as long as I don't have him in my lineup and I don't have a fantasy team anymore. So fans, you're safe. If you want to put him in, he's going to put up points because I am not playing him.
Number 13 here, I would drop down my list if Carson Palmer does not play, which it looks like he's not going to. Michael Floyd versus Washington. Washington's a pretty good defense against fantasy wide receivers. He only had 1 catch last week with Arizona's 3rd-string quarterback. So if Palmer doesn't play, I don't like him with Drew Stanton either. They're too inconsistent. Only if Palmer plays, play Michael Floyd.
Yeah, with all the quarterback, not controversy in what who's going to play, but who's going to play because they're healthy. You never know, so you don't want to play somebody like that.
Number 14, Edelman from New England going up against Buffalo. They let up the 13th most points to fantasy wide receivers. He's coming off 2 down weeks, but Brady did look better last week, so maybe he can keep it going. And Edelman killed Buffalo last year, had 16 catches and 144 yards with 2 touchdowns in 2 games against them.
Edelman's usually their number 1 target as far as wide receivers go in New England. Brady's comfortable with him. He knows them. I see him picking up more and climbing up the ladder even more throughout the season as it goes on. I think Edelman can be a top 10 wide receiver by the end of the year.
15, Mike Wallace versus Green Bay. They let up the 9th fewest to fantasy wide receivers, but he's been consistent this year. He has 3 touchdowns. I still don't like him. I don't see him as a consistent player, so I would sell high on him right now, but play him this week if you have him.
You loved Mike Wallace when he came out of the draft. You said he was better than Jerry Rice.
I didn't say he was better than Jerry Rice.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Maybe I was just hearing things.
I did like him coming out of the draft, though.
I might have had a couple cold ones while you were telling me that, so maybe I'm mistaken.
Number 16, another guy you may want to drop down your list if Jake Locker doesn't play. I don't like Charlie Whitehurst, but it's Kendall Wright versus Jacksonville. They led up the 4th most to fantasy wide receivers. If Locker plays, I play him. He had 2 TDs last week. He has 26 targets in his past 3 games. He had a huge game last week. Play Kendall Wright if Locker plays. If not, get him out of here.
That's about it.
Andre Hawkins from Cleveland going up against Pittsburgh. He only had 3 catches last week. I said he was going to have a good game. I was wrong, but he did have 9 targets still, though, so he just wasn't making the catches is pretty much what it was. He does have 41 targets in 4 games, so he's getting a lot of looks. And he had 8 catches for 87 in week 1 versus Steelers, so I like him.
Yeah, if you got him on your team, hopefully he's not hanging out with Limas Swede, because those kind of sound like Limas Swede numbers with all those targets and not a lot of catches. But this dude, he'll turn it around and he'll start playing better, especially against the Steelers, because our defense is filled with pretty big holes.
He's available in a lot of leagues, too, so if you're looking for a receiver, he's probably out there for you. 18, Terrence Williams at Seattle. They lit up the 9th most of fantasy wide receivers. This guy isn't getting a lot of targets, just 27 this season, but he does have 5 TDs in 5 weeks. I play him if you have to. I sell high on him now if somebody wants him. I don't like Tony Romo. I don't like anybody in their passing game but Des Bryant. But I do play Williams this week.
Yeah, I'm not big on Dallas players. Dallas' team is too up and down. It makes me want to pull my hair out.
Number 19, Sammy Watkins versus New England. They are the best against fantasy wide receivers. I said he was going to have a down week last week. He played pretty well. He had 12 targets with Kyle Orton, but he's going to be mirrored by Darrelle Revis this week, so it's going to be a tough week for him. I play him if you have to. I try to find something else.
Yeah, Revis is a good corner. They look like they're going to start using him like he used to be used back in the day and let him fall around the other team's best receiver. So if he's following Watkins around all day, bleep him. You don't need to play him.
And number 20, again, this is only if Carson Palmer plays. Larry Fitzgerald. Palmer does like Larry Fitzgerald. Unlike Stanton, it seems like. He's a great buy low candidate. When Palmer comes back, Larry Fitzgerald can make fantasy relevance again.
Yeah, and Palmer will probably be back by the end of the year, and that's really when the playoffs kick in, and that's what's important. So if you can get Fitzgerald now for something low and stash him on your bench, he's going to put up big points at the end of the year.
Couple sleepers here. Mike Evans this week. He's questionable. He is going to play. He's still owning about half the leagues, going up against a bad defense in Baltimore. I wouldn't say a bad defense, bad pass defense.
Yeah.
He was torching the Steelers before he got hurt.
Yeah, who doesn't torch the Steelers before they got hurt? Especially a big body receiver like Evans. Like, we really can't cover those big guys like we were talking about earlier with the tight ends. They hurt us.
Another one is Washington's third receiver, Roberts. He's only owned in 6% of the leagues. Arizona lets up the most points to fantasy wide receivers, and that is mostly over the middle of the field. And that's where you will see Roberts. He had 9 targets last week. He had a TD in each of his past 2 weeks. He has an easier matchup than Garcon and Jackson, so I like Roberts as a sleeper here. One other one here, Marcus Wheaton at Cleveland. They let up the 15th most to fantasy wide receivers. He had a down week last week with just 1 catch for 17 yards. But in week 1, he had 6 for 97 against Cleveland, so he might be a good play.
1 catch last week. I hear bounce back week coming this week. So pick up Wheaton, throw him in the lineup.
You want to tell him the stash here?
The stash? Well, Josh Gordon has his own stash, doesn't he? Isn't that why he's not allowed to play?
Nice one.
Yeah, Josh Gordon's a good guy to stash on your bench. Some people don't want to carry him. He's a freak. He put up 1,600 yards in 14 games last year. So if you're willing to give up a roster spot, go without a kicker. It's probably not going to cost you the game. Who cares?
Listen, if I don't have one of the top 10 wide receivers, I'm picking up Josh Gordon and stashing him on my bench. He's still owned in over 40% of the leagues. This guy is a beast. Pick him up, stash him, unless you already have beast wide receivers.
That wraps up our fantasy segment. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you got some good knowledge. We're dropping some quality info on you guys today. Dash knows what he's doing. He spent a lot of time on this. Thanks, Dash, for sitting in.
Yep.
Follow us at bet_the_spread on Twitter. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Everybody have a good night. Peace.
Do work.